Stephanie White, the Indiana Fever's head coach, knew how to stir up the WNBA crowd. But her latest announcement about two rising stars, Kelsey Mitchel and Caitlin Clark, hit like a surprise crossover, leaving fans buzzing across social media and courtside alike. With her characteristic cool, White dropped her bombshell in a straightforward way, getting right to the point without a single ounce of extra fluff. She seemed to enjoy the ripple effect she created. Fans watched as her expression stayed calm, while everyone else went wild with theories, speculations, and just sheer excitement. But before we proceed further, don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe. The news itself was unexpected. Everyone knew that Kelsey Mitchel, the Fever's hotshot guard, had a style that's all her own. Mitchell is known for her three-point shots that barely touch the net, not to mention her blinding speed that often leaves defenders spinning. Meanwhile, Caitlin Clark, the young phenom from Iowa, had been steadily building her own reputation as a dynamo shooter with an undeniable presence on the court. White's announcement suggested that Mitchell and Clark would be a pair to watch, together, in ways no one had quite anticipated. Let's set the scene. White delivered her announcement with the kind of casual tone you might use when ordering a coffee. But her message wasn't casual at all. This wasn't some slight strategy change or a lineup tweak. White hinted at something much bigger. From the way she worded things, it was clear she was hinting at an explosive partnership, or even more intriguingly, a type of mentorship between Mitchell and Clark. The idea alone was enough to send fans into a frenzy. Here was Kelsey Mitchel, who'd carved her own lane in the WNBA, now potentially influencing one of the most talked-about young players in recent memory. Both Mitchell and Clark have raw talent, but their approach to the game is starkly different, almost like fire and ice. Mitchell's game is fast, often intense, and leans on pure athleticism and quick decisions. She's got a no-nonsense approach that doesn't often invite guesswork. Her intentions are usually right there in her movements, clear and direct. Clark, on the other hand, brings an edge that's almost sneaky. She has this unique ability to look like she's just about to pass, only to surprise everyone with a shot from way beyond the arc. When these two styles were hinted at coming together, fans could hardly contain their excitement. It was like imagining a jazz duet between a saxophone and a violin, unexpected, but potentially brilliant. The bombshell also threw some light on White's coaching genius. White has an eye for talent, that much is certain, but she's also skilled in identifying how different styles can create synergy. The idea of blending Mitchell's fiery gameplay with Clark's cunning approach was ambitious, to say the least. People speculated whether White saw Clark as someone who could benefit from Mitchell's take-charge mentality, or if she was hoping Clark's creativity could spark new angles in Mitchell's already sharp skill set. Whatever her reasoning, it was clear that White wasn't planning to take a backseat in developing the league's next powerhouse players. When fans finally caught on to the implications, the energy was electric. Forums lit up with endless possibilities. Some said White had hinted at a playbook that would allow these two to shine individually, like a co-lead strategy where both Mitchell and Clark could play to their strengths without one overshadowing the other. Others suggested that White was aiming to create a dynamic where Clark's shot-creating abilities would take the pressure off Mitchell's scoring load, letting her roam more freely on the court. White's announcement also triggered a wave of humorous speculation. Fans started imagining the chemistry on and off the court. Would Mitchell, known for her laser-focused work ethic, be ready for Clark's more freewheeling style? There were jokes that Clark's fans would have to start calling Mitchell Sensei if a mentorship truly developed. Common threads were full of hypothetical conversations, with people playfully imagining Mitchell lecturing Clark about practicing free throws while Clark rolled her eyes. The clash of personalities was a whole subplot on its own. While all the fan predictions were flying around, there was another angle to consider. What did this mean for the rest of the league? Teams like the Las Vegas Aces and New York Liberty have been setting the WNBA's pace lately, building super teams that almost guarantee them a deep run in the playoffs. But with Mitchell and Clark potentially creating a 1-2 punch, the Fever could be setting the stage to challenge the current hierarchy. If White's plans bore fruit, this wouldn't just elevate the Fever's game, it would shake up the entire league. Teams would have to rethink their defensive strategies, figure out who to double-team, and generally brace themselves for a level of unpredictability not often seen in the WNBA. Then there was the subtle message White seemed to be sending about development in the league. By pairing Mitchell and Clark in some capacity, White was essentially taking a stand for what she believed the WNBA's future should look like. This wasn't just about building an instant contender. It was about nurturing raw talent, refining it, and showing young players that there's more than one path to stardom. White seemed to understand that while Mitchell's path was forged by grit and determination, Clark's trajectory was fueled by a creative, almost playful spirit. Combining these would be a bold message to every fan, player, and coach that the WNBA was a space where differences in playing style could be celebrated rather than molded into a single ideal. Meanwhile, reporters and insiders scrambled to find out what this actually meant in practical terms. Was White talking about an off-season training program, or was this a move to bring Clark over to the Fever in some capacity? The details were scarce, leaving enough room for the rumor mill to go full throttle. Even Clark's own camp remained tight-lipped, with her agent sidestepping questions in a way that only fueled more interest. Clark herself gave a knowing smile in a brief interview, offering no confirmation but leaving fans with a lingering sense that something big was brewing. For Kelsey Mitchel, this development was also personal. She'd been with the Fever long enough to have witnessed the highs and lows of the franchise. It wasn't lost on her fans that she might be ready to pass on some of what she's learned, possibly to Clark. Mitchell's journey hasn't always been easy. She fought her way up, learning to balance her responsibilities as a playmaker with the demands of being a top scorer. If there's one thing Mitchell knows, it's how to handle pressure, and it would be fascinating to see how, or if, she passes that resilience on to someone like Clark. The news highlighted a key component of White's coaching philosophy. She doesn't just look for skill, she looks for character. Mitchell's hard-nosed style and Clark's seemingly endless energy both say a lot about who they are off the court. White knew what she was doing by suggesting they come together in some capacity. It was as if she were planting a seed of rivalry and mentorship, knowing full well that these two would be bound to learn from each other while keeping that edge of competition alive. In a league where team chemistry can make or break a season, White's bold approach carried risk but also potential rewards. Fans debated whether Mitchell's competitive drive would clash with Clark's looser style, or if they'd end up balancing each other out. Some were quick to point out that this was exactly the kind of bold decision that had been missing from the Fever in recent years. With White at the helm, it felt like the franchise was finally willing to experiment, take chances, and give the fans something to believe in. The announcement also had ripple effects on the league's wider fan base. WNBA followers aren't just fans, they're dedicated, and they notice every detail. Some noticed that White's move was a direct counter to the super team trend. Rather than stacking a roster with stars, White seemed more interested in creating stars from within. There was something almost poetic in the way she was going about it, opting for a partnership that could be built over time rather than an immediate power grab. As the dust settled from the initial frenzy, the implications became clear. This wasn't just about creating a flashy moment for fans. White's Bombshell was the beginning of something bigger, a strategy that would likely unfold over several seasons. She was laying down a foundation for the Fever, and in doing so, she was sending a message to the entire WNBA community. If Mitchell and Clark were to become something akin to the league's new dynamic duo, it would represent a shift in the balance of power, one that wasn't dependent on market size, but rather on talent and teamwork.